This is a defining moment of truth for our country. And I want you to look at this from the perspective of your kids and your grandkids and the generations that will follow us, who will be reading in their history books about this moment in 2019. It's the same way when we were kids, we were reading in our history books about how this country in 1939 rejected a ship of more than 900 Jewish refugees trying to escape the Third Reich and the Holocaust. And this country sent them back. More than 250 of those passengers, kids, women, and children, would be murdered. And that's a stain on our conscience, something that we live with every single day as a country. And when we look back on 1939, we say, look, if I was alive at that time, if I was in a position to do something about it, I would have made sure that we accepted those Jewish refugees. A couple of years later, we decided to incarcerate Japanese and Japanese American citizens in this country. Put them in jails, in internment camps, and detention centers for no other crime than their race and their ethnicity. The nativism and the racism that we had in this country at the time, we have since, as a country, officially apologized for what we did to our fellow Americans at that moment. And I guarantee you, every single one of us feels we were alive at that moment. If we had the chance to do the right thing, we certainly would have. We cannot understand what this country was doing in the 1940s to our fellow Americans. Well, here we are in 2019. And though this is just one facility here in Houston, Texas, it is part of a massive network across this country that has incarcerated more children who have not committed a crime than at any time in American history since the 1940s, when we incarcerated Japanese American children. That is what we are doing. And you and I and every single one of us will face our own conscience, the judgment, the reckoning, the accountability of our kids, who will want to know what we did when we faced this truth and this moment of truth where we could act. Let's remind ourselves, these young children, more likely than not, and we do not know because Southwest Key will not let us in, will not answer our questions, shows absolutely no transparency or accountability. These children fled the deadliest countries, not in the Americas, but on the planet today. Countries where their lives will be lost if they should stay there. That is the only reason that someone would make more than a 1,000-mile journey on foot, sometimes atop a train known as the Beast, to come to this country, a country of immigrants, asylum seekers, and refugees. That's who we are. That's who we've always been. And yet this country today, at their most desperate and vulnerable moment, puts them in cages, keeps them in Border Patrol facilities like the one we will visit tomorrow in Clint, Texas, sleeping on concrete floors, under aluminum blankets, children soiled in the clothes that they've been wearing for weeks, if not months, toddlers without diapers, shitting on the floor that they will sleep on that same night, kids taking care of kids, separated from their parents, no idea when or even if they will see them again. This, the wealthiest, the most powerful country on the face of the planet, is doing this to the least of us at this moment. This cannot be us. This cannot be America. But in this great democracy, where the people are the government, and the government is the people, it is American. It is on every single one of us until we make this right. And let me tell you, for those of you who joined us last year in Tornillo, Texas, you understand what your presence, what your voice, and your willingness to hold vigil, to testify to our fellow Americans will do. We came there on Father's Day last year after President Trump had initiated his zero-tolerance policy, meaning 100% of kids encountered on the border with their families were separated, their parents turned over to the Department of Justice, and then deported back to the very countries from which they fled. Those kids in cages ending up in foster care homes, God only knows where, with no ability to come together. And some of them in that tent encampment in Tornillo, people all over this country showed up. They protested. They held up their phones just like you're holding up your phone right now. And folks in Ohio, in Indiana, in Iowa, and Michigan, and all over this country understood what was happening in Tornillo. And within weeks, the administration ended the zero-tolerance policy at the border because of the public pressure and the political will that you formed in this great democracy. And within a year, Tornillo, Texas was shut down, closed, no longer accepting kids. So this is what we ask of Southwest Key. At a minimum, let us come inside and see how those kids are doing. We're all accountable for those kids. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they are okay. We're going to do everything we can to connect them with their parents. We are going to insist that Southwest Key, Health and Human Services, the Office of Refugee Resettlement, not share their parents' or sponsors' information with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So that family members can come forward and claim those kids and get them into a safe home. Southwest Key, at least give us these answers. And then here's what we ask of you. You have made hundreds of millions of dollars off of detaining these kids in facilities like these. Put your money where your mouth is. Those are our tax dollars. And tell the federal government you will accept not another child until the federal government ensures that those kids are connected with their parents as soon as possible.
Yes.
We abide by the letter of the law, including the Forest Agreement, making sure that they have sanitary conditions, primary and mental health care, a world-class education, and are treated with the dignity and respect that we owe them as our fellow human beings.
Yes.
And then let's do this as a country. Let's decide that we will never again in the United States of America separate a child from her mother or her father. We will never again put them in a cage or in a detention center or force them to spend days or weeks or months or years at a facility like this one at Southwest Key. That we understand that we must not just tolerate or respect our differences, but fully embrace them if we are going to be the strongest, best America we can be. And that it is to our lasting benefit that these children have come to this country. And if they are granted asylum, they're able to stay here with their families. They will reveal their true power and genius here in the United States of America and contribute to our success and to our greatness for the rest of their lives. And then lastly, as Cesar said, we must now rewrite this country's immigration laws in our own image, from the perspective of the most diverse city in the United States of America. Let's make sure that we work with the countries of Honduras and Guatemala and El Salvador. Reduce violence there, help those farmers who are struggling through historic droughts so that they can feed themselves and be safe and not have to make this journey to this country in the first place. Let us spare no expense in reuniting every single family who's been separated in the United States.
These are
And then let's do this.
concentration camp.
Let's do this. Those more than 1 million dreamers who right now live in constant fear of being deported back to the very countries from which they fled. Those TPS holders who are here decades after they came from El Salvador and Haiti and other countries legally. Let's make sure that we free them from that fear by making them U.S. citizens in this, their true home country. Millions more, including those brothers and sisters of dreamers, their parents, who the dreamers refer to as the original dreamers, allow them to come forward, contribute even more to our success and our greatness as legal permanent residents than U.S. citizens. Let's make sure that our immigration laws reflect our values, our interests, and the reality that we see here on the ground in Houston, Texas, and in my hometown of El Paso. When we do this, our country will live up to its potential and will fulfill its promise. You all ready to work on this? Somebody want to be with you. Please keep up the fight. These kids are counting on it. I'm grateful. Yep. And accountability for how every single child is treated, whether they're here at Southwest Key, whether they're at a Border Patrol station in Clint, Texas. There have been 7 children whose lives have been lost within our care and our custody as a country. We are accountable for that. Somebody says probably more because we only know about the 7th because of investigative journalists. The press, not the enemy of the people, the best defense against tyranny. What is happening on name right now. So thank you for being with these kids. We came here today to tell you that we are with you. Les agradezco. Gracias. Thank you all very much. Thanks for being here. Yeah, very grateful. Thank you so much for testify out. Yes. Please.
Are we ready to fight?
Yeah.
Are we ready to win?
Yeah.
Are we ready to fight?
Yeah.
Are we ready to win?
Yeah.
I believe. I believe that.
I believe that.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
The people united will never be defeated.
The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
The people
United will never be defeated.
The rally's not over. We now will have community members come up and speak about the different issues and about how we're doing to make sure that we shut these centers down. So make sure that we stick around, that we know how we can get involved, and that we continue to support these strong activists here in Houston.
Should I be speaking?
Okay, so now we're gonna have Joseph. He's gonna say a few words.
Beto, what's your thought on the $4.6
I'm
billion?
Joseph Say. I'm one of the founders of Panzer Republic Texas, and I'm here to support our community, our neighbors, our families, our friends. We cannot keep on allowing this travesty to occur in our backyards. We must fight, we must share this story, and we must not let the news cycle die from this story.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
When human rights are under attack, what do you do?
Stand up, fight back.
When human rights are under attack, what do you do?
Stand up, fight back.
When human rights are under attack, what do you do?
Stand up, fight back.
Peace fighting. There you go up for an invisible user.
Help us get into a position where millions of people will be willing to stand and march like they have in Hong Kong.
Tell me.